Hello, everyone. Okay, moving on with the topics lessons. Lesson 91 is transport part 2 because transport is such a big problem in my country that we had to have a second round to cover it. Okay, I'm just kidding, of course. That's obviously a reference to that Borat song. So, what do we have here? We have two people standing in front of what is recognizably a map of the Moscow Metro. Some of you might recognize it from Metro 20, what's the game? I think 2033 or something like that. But yeah, this is actually just the real world map of the Moscow Metro. So we have a conversation between Karl and Olga. Let's go ahead and see what they say. Karl calls her Olya, which is common short form for Olga.
Оля, слушай, как я могу доехать до аэропорта?
На такси.
Нет, я хочу как все русские.
Ну, тогда ты можешь поехать на метро, а потом на маршрутке.
А что такое маршрутка?
Это маленький автобус. На нем есть номер маршрута, по которому он идет.
Боюсь, это трудно для меня. Есть еще варианты?
Конечно. Ты можешь доехать до аэропорта от вокзала на специальной электричке. Она идет без остановок.
С какого вокзала?
Если тебе нужно в Шереметьево, то с Белорусского вокзала. Если во Внуково, то с Киевского. А если в Домодедово, то с Павелецкого вокзала.
У меня самолет улетает из Домодедово. Это значит, что мне нужен Павелецкий вокзал. Это станция метро Павелецкая?
Да, ты прав. Обычно электрички ходят через каждые полчаса. И свой багаж ты можешь сдать там же.
Ладно, попробую поехать на электричке. Ведь в Москве всегда пробки. И боюсь, что на такси я не успею.
Удачи!
Okay. So, it's funny. Carl seems to speak. I'm assuming Carl's not a Russian, but he seems to speak Russian pretty well. And for all that he's learned Russian, you'd think that he knows what a marshutka is. But okay, so Carl says.
Оля, слушай, как я могу доехать до аэропорта?
So, how I can доехать до аэропорта. Olya, listen, how can I get to the airport, or how can I drive to the airport?
На такси.
With a taxi.
Нет, я хочу как все русские.
No, I want to do it how all Russians do it, which, by the way, I think several Russians do take a taxi to the airport. I think that's not that unusual, but okay. No, I want to do it like all Russians, I guess, like regular Russians do it.
Ну, тогда ты можешь поехать на метро,
So, поехать. Oops. Поехать на метро.
а потом на маршрутке.
Well, then you can go by the metro, and after that by marshrutka.
А что такое маршрутка?
And what is a marshrutka?
Это маленький автобус.
It is a small bus.
На нем есть номер маршрута, по которому он идет.
On him or on it is the number of the route which it drives, or which he drives.
Боюсь, это трудно для меня.
I'm afraid it's difficult for me.
Есть еще варианты?
Are there other variants or other possibilities? This is, by the way, fairly typical. So, if you live on the outskirts of a city, like Moscow, but also other cities, other larger cities in Russia, and you don't have a car. Obviously, public transit doesn't go everywhere. There are specific lines which public transit runs to, but typically, if you live even beyond the lines, like if you live farther outside of the city than where the metro lines go, then this is exactly what Russians tend to do if they don't have their own car. They'll take the metro to the end of the line, and then from there they'll take a marshutka, which covers their region where they live. And the marshutka is. Usually the marshutka are privately operated, so they are not part of the public transit system. They are not part of, they're not a public works. They are privately operated transit, but they run just like buses. They'll have a line number on them, and and it's just like a little, more like a little van. It's really not, it's not so much a bus, it's just like a passenger van that's privately operated. Anyway. So Carl says, it's very difficult for me to travel by marshutka. Are there any other possibilities?
Конечно. Ты можешь доехать до аэропорта от вокзала на специальной электричке.
So once again, the word there was доехать. So she says, of course, you can go to the airport from a train station um, in a special electrichka, in a special electric train. Electrichka are usually suburban electric trains.
Она идет без остановок.
He runs, he being the train, runs, or actually, no, Anna, sorry, Anna, not on, because it's, yeah, sorry, poezd is masculine, but electrichka is feminine because it ends in A. So she runs without stop, so basically non-stop.
С какого вокзала?
From which train station?
Если тебе нужно в Шереметьево, то с Белорусского вокзала.
So if you need to go to Sheremetyevo, which is probably Moscow's largest airport, I believe, then from Beloruskogo vokzal, so from the Belarusian train station. And this is true. If you want to take the electric train to the Sheremetyevo airport, then yeah, that is true. You take an electrichka, you take a non-stop train from the Beloruskogo vokzal.
Если во Внуково, то с Киевского.
If you're going to Vnukovo airport, then you go from Kievskovo, from the Kiev train station.
А если в Домодедово, то с Павелецкого вокзала.
And if you're going to Domodedovo airport, then you go from the Paveletskovo Pavel train station. Yeah, I believe, I'm not an expert on Moscow geography, but I believe these are actually the correct routes for actual real life Moscow transit.
У меня самолет улетает из Домодедово.
Okay, so улетает. So I have a plane that leaves from Domodedovo airport.
Это значит, что мне нужен Павелецкий вокзал.
That means I need to use the Paveletsky train station.
Это станция метро Павелецкая?
Is that the metro station Paveletskaya?
Да, ты прав.
Yes, you're right.
Обычно электрички ходят через каждые полчаса.
So, usually the electrichki run every half an hour. Polchaska is half hour.
И свой багаж ты можешь сдать там же.
And your luggage you can check in there.
Ладно,
Okay.
попробую поехать на электричке.
I will try going in an electrichka.
Ведь в Москве всегда пробки, и боюсь, что на такси я не успею.
Because in Moscow there are always probki, traffic jams, and I'm afraid that I will not have success going in a taxi.
Удачи.
Good luck. I don't know what he's worried about. I mean, usually you're wary of going in a taxi if you're worried that you won't be able to speak enough Russian, but he obviously speaks Russian, so I don't know why he's worried about not being able to take a taxi. But anyway. Okay, so that was the dialogue, and now we move on to a short test. What is a marshrutka? Is it a karta marshruta, a map of the routes? So marshruta is a route, basically. A marshrutka is something that goes along routes. So don't get this mixed up. A marshrutka is not a karta marshruta. It's not a map of the routes. And it's also not a женщина, показывающая маршрут. It's not a woman who shows the routes. It is a маршрутное такси, маленький автобус. It is a route taxi or small bus. It is kind of like a cross between a taxi and a bus because it's privately operated, and usually if you ask them, can we like make an extra stop here, they'll usually stop where you want them to. It's like in many parts of the world they don't have buses that run using fixed stops. Instead, you just tell the driver where you want to stop, and the driver will just let you off there. That's basically what a marsrutka is. They're common in developing countries. В аэропорт Шереметьево можно уехать с something вокзала. So in the airport. Sheremetyevo, you can get there from which vokzal, from which train station? As we said, from the Beloruskovo. And ехать на такси в аэропорт неудобно, потому что driving in a taxi to the airport is inconvenient because это долго, it's long, это глупо, it's stupid, Or такси не ездят в аэропорт. Taxis don't go to the airport. Well, taxis do go to the airport, so I guess then it's either because it's long or because it's stupid. Well, I guess either of those is correct, but I think they expect you to say it's a dolgo. It takes a long time, and yes, that is the expected answer. Although it's stupid might also theoretically might be a correct answer unless you have a huge amount of money to pay. Okay, now we are at a kassa, so at a cash register or at a pay desk, and we have another dialogue between a tourist, which is obviously a tourist, and a kassir, a cashier. Let's listen in and see what they have to say.
2 билета в Петербург на пятницу, 25 мая, вечер.
Дорогие билеты смотреть.
Лучше дешевые.
Дешевые только в плацкарте.
А что это?
Плацкарт– это общий вагон, где есть места сбоку. Купе– это отдельные кабины на 4 человек. Есть еще СВ– спальный вагон. Это купе на двоих.
Посмотрите, пожалуйста, тогда купе.
Есть места в купе, нижняя и верхняя полки. Один билет 1600 рублей.
Места в одном купе?
Да, будете брать?
А время?
23:55.
Хорошо.
Ваши паспорта, пожалуйста. Итак, 2 билета в Санкт-Петербург на 25 мая, время отправления 23 часа 55 минут, время прибытия 7 утра. С вас 3200 рублей, если можно, без сдачи.
Извините?
Если можно, дайте мне ровно 3200 рублей.
Да, вот.
Ваши билеты.
Спасибо.
Okay. Seems like a realistic enough conversation. I like the look of the eyes on the woman. She looks like she's very tired of being a cashier and dealing with these tourists, which is actually typical of most cashiers who look like this, like, oh, not again. Somebody's coming here to buy something. Why is this happening to me? Okay, so the tourist says,
2 билета в Петербург на пятницу, 25 мая, вечер.
so he says 2 tickets to Petersburg, obviously meaning St. Petersburg, on Friday, the 25th of May in the evening.
Дорогие билеты смотреть.
Do you want expensive tickets? I like how tickets here are divided into expensive and cheap ones. They don't tell you what you get with the expensive tickets. They just say, do you want the expensive ones or the cheap ones? As if there were benefit to getting the expensive ones. I'm sure there is a benefit. I'm sure that probably it's like first class and second class. Probably the first class is nicer, but they don't say first class or second class here. They just say, do you want the expensive ones or the cheap ones?
Лучше дешевые.
Better the cheap ones.
Дешевые только в плацкарте.
Дешевые только в плацкарте. So you get the cheap ones only with a Platzkarte, with a place card, like with a reserved seat.
А что это?
What is that? So yeah, so she explains what it is, but briefly, a Platzkarte is a seat reservation.
Плацкарт – это общий вагон, где есть места сбоку. Купе – это отдельные кабины на 4 человек.
Okay, so hold on. So a Platzkarte is a общий вагон. It's a shared wagon, a shared train car, где есть место сбоку, with seats on the sides. And then a coupe is a отдельные кабины, so it's separate cabins with 4 people. So a Platzkarte is... Okay, so that is the difference. So a Platzkarte basically gives you seats on the side of the train. The expensive ones then must be the Coupe, which is you have your own cabin with four people in it.
Есть еще СВ – спальный вагон. Это купе на двоих.
Okay, got it. Okay. So there's also the SV, spalny wagon, or sleeping wagon, sleeping car, which is a coupe for 2. So a compartment for 2 people, a sleeping compartment for 2.
Посмотрите, пожалуйста, тогда купе.
Let's look at, please, than at the coupe. So he doesn't want the плацкарт. He doesn't want to sit in a shared wagon. He wants to have a coupe, so like a private space.
Есть места в купе, нижняя и верхняя полки.
So, if it's a place in a, or there are places in the coupe, upper and lower bunk. So basically, yes, it's like bunk beds. This is actually true in Russian trains. It's kind of like bunk beds. You have bunks on top of each other. So you have an upper and a lower bunk. And one ticket is 1,600 rubles.
Один билет 1600 рублей.
Места в одном купе?
Can I get a place in one coupe, in one private cabin?
Да, будете брать?
Yes. Will you take it?
А время?
And the time?
23:55.
So 23. 55. Okay, 23:55. So that's 5 minutes before midnight.
Хорошо.
Okay.
Ваши паспорта, пожалуйста.
Ваша паспорта, пожалуйста. Your passport, please.
Итак, 2 билета в Санкт-Петербург на 25 мая, время отправления 23 часа 55 минут.
Okay, and so 2 tickets to St. Petersburg on the 25th of May. Время отправления, время отправления, which means departure time. So departure time 23 часа 55 минут. So departure time is 23:55, which again is 5 minutes before midnight.
Время прибытия 7 утра. С вас 3000...
Okay, hold on. So, время прибытия 7 утра. So, time of arrival 7 in the morning.
1200 рублей. Если можно, без сдачи.
So, with you, 3,200 rubles, or I guess from you. She says with you, but I believe, yeah, this is kind of like in Russian, they often say with to mean from. So from you, I get 3,200 rubles. And then she said, если можно, без сдачи. So basically, if possible, without change. So she doesn't want to give it change. So she's saying, if possible, exact cash, please, if possible.
Извините?
Excuse me?
Если можно, дайте мне ровно 3200 рублей.
If possible, give me exactly 3,200 rubles. So no change.
Да, вот.
Ваши билеты.
Спасибо.
Yes, here you go. Your tickets. Thank you. Okay. So yeah, these are actually fairly typical conversations. Oh, I just realized I made a mistake here. Hold on. What did I do wrong here? I messed something up. I actually didn't check this because I thought it was so simple that I couldn't have messed it up, but I did anyhow. What did I mess up here? Oh, hold on. Right, okay, so hold on. This here is поехать. And this here is doyechat. There we go. That was the mistake I made. Sorry, I just realized that now. Oh boy. Still making noob mistakes. Sorry. Okay. All right, and here we have another dialogue. This time this is a dialogue between a sergeant and a водитель. So a sergeant and a driver. And you see a 60 sign here, which of course means a 60 kilometer per hour speed limit. Let's see what the sergeant and the водитель have to say.
Добрый день. Сержант Петров. Ваши документы.
Вот, пожалуйста. А что случилось?
Вы, господин Адамсон, правила нарушили.
Какие правила?
Превысили скорость. Здесь разрешенная скорость 60 км в час, а вы ехали со скоростью 100 км в час.
Не может быть.
Пойдемте посмотрим. У нас все записано.
И что мне делать?
Я выпишу штраф, вот квитанция. Вы можете оплатить его в любом отделении банка. Счастливого пути.
Спасибо.
So this is a very controversial sort of situation in Russia. I've actually never had experiences with this because I've never driven a car in Russia. But okay, let's fill in the dialogue first, then I'll comment on it as we go. So the sergeant says,
Добрый день. Сержант Петров.
"Good day, Sergeant Petrov," introducing himself by name.
Ваши документы.
Ваши документы, your documents.
Вот, пожалуйста. А что случилось?
Here you are, please. And what happened?
Вы, господин Адамсон, правила нарушили.
You, Mr. Adamson, broke the rules.
Какие правила?
Which rules?
Превысили скорость.
Okay. Exceeding the speed limit.
Здесь разрешенная скорость 60 км в час.
Here there is a speed limit of 60 kilometers per hour.
А вы ехали со скоростью 100 км в час.
And you were driving with a speed of 100 kilometers per hour. I wonder if this guy's an American. It may be that this guy's driving an American car and he saw the 60 and went 60 miles per hour, which is about 100 kilometers per hour. That might explain, because the guy's obviously not Russian. His name is Mr. Adamson, so he's obviously, it sounds like an English kind of name, so he's probably an American who's used to miles per hour and didn't realize that here it's kilometers per hour, and so that's probably what happened.
Не может быть.
That can't be.
Пойдемте посмотрим.
Well, let's see.
У нас все записано.
We have everything written down.
И что мне делать?
And what do I have to do?
Я выпишу штраф.
Я выпишу штраф. I will write you a Straf, which is apparently a borrowed German word meaning basically your ticket.
Вот квитанция.
Вот квитанция. Here is your, I guess kind of like your receipt, which is also actually a German word. Quittung is also like a German word for receipt.
Вы можете оплатить его в любом отделении банка.
You can pay it at any branch of a bank.
Счастливого пути.
Have a nice trip.
Спасибо.
Thank you. So, yeah, okay. So, until quite recently in Russia, it was very stereotypical that if you got stopped by the police, rather than them writing you a ticket and you having to go and pay the ticket somewhere else, you would just pay the officer directly, which is not legal and basically meant that the officer would keep the money instead of the money going to where it's supposed to go. But it was actually better for both sides because the officer would get some extra money and the officer would usually demand less cash than what you would have to actually pay for the ticket. So it worked out on both sides. It was quietly tolerated for a long time because drivers liked it actually because it meant that they could, first of all, they paid less money because they paid the cop less money than they would pay to the court. And secondly, it kept their records clean because they wouldn't actually have the driving violation on their record. And obviously police liked it because they would give, they'd get a little bit of extra money on the side. So it worked out for both sides, but it didn't work out for the government. And so I think the government's been cracking down on it lately, and they've been basically more harshly punishing police officers who try to directly get, not exactly bribes, but what are in effect bribes from drivers. So it's kind of, the situation's changing, but that's how it was for a long time. Okay, so what do we have here? Yeah, so we just saw kvitanция and straf are basically the things that you get from a police officer when you commit a violation. So yeah, marshrutka and elektrichke. So this is a marshrutka, a small bus like this, and this is an elektrichke. Poyezd is a train. Platskart and kupye, we heard about this. A platskart is kind of like a regular seating place in a shared wagon, and a kupye is off to the side. And then bolku is like a bunk bed. Прибывает is, I guess, arrival. Platform is, of course, platform, so the train platform. And put is, I guess this is the track. So, in Slavic countries, they tend to have platforms and then there are tracks. So the way that this works, like you see the number 4 here. So what this is basically is each platform has 2 tracks, and so they'll say, platform 1 has tracks 1 and 2, platform 2 has tracks 3 and 4, and so on. So platform 4 has tracks 7 and 8. So here's 8, and then on the other side here, we don't see it would be track 7. That's usually how it goes. Airport. So here they use the word reis, but reis is here basically a flight. So flight number 0722 to Moscow. And then совершил посадку зону прилета. So зону прилета is arrival zone. And then I don't know what совершил посадку is. But yeah, this is basically the, let's see, actually, it might show up here in the full list. I should be looking at the full list here. Okay, so this is what we saw last time with the Ostanovka, the Stanция, и вокзал, and the Stoyanka or Parkovka. But this time we're looking at, actually, this is exactly what we saw. It doesn't really give us any further insight. But okay, there you go. So that's your vocabulary for the second part of transport. Okay, so here we have 2 short questions, but the trick here is several correct answers are possible. So, поезд. What are words associated with a train? Поезд. Прибывает. So this is an arrival. Прилетает is also an arrival, but for flying. So you will not have a прилетает for a train because this is a plane. This is a flying arrival in an airport. Приходить is also basically arrival, but I believe that's on foot, isn't it? Yeah, that's arriving on foot. So you will not have that. You will not have that in. Or will you? Actually, no, you will, I guess. Hold on. What is the difference between прибывает and приходить? Yeah, but actually, no, both of those. A train does those two. That's right. So a train does a прибывает and a приходить. And then a самолет, an airplane, has a прилетает and a приземляется, which are both arrivals. So flying arrival and a land arrival. Oh, maybe this is when the train taxis in? Because земля is earth. So this might be when the plane lands by flying, and then this is when the plane arrives by taxiing to the airport. That's just a guess, though. And then what is the difference between... Let me just look this up on Wiktionary because... so прибывать is the... Yeah, okay, to arrive, but that's not particularly... Yeah, that's really not... It's not very helpful because obviously there's a difference between these two, but I don't know what the difference is, so sorry. Okay, and for our last exercise, we have to drag the words here again, so let's go ahead and get to it. So what we have here is наш поезд, something в Москву, в 8:15 утра. So our train... something in Moscow at 8:15 in the morning. I think again we have, приходить. The train arrives in Moscow at 8:15 in the morning. Мы something в Москву из Токио завтра вечером. So we, I guess, arrive in Moscow from Tokyo tomorrow evening. So this is obviously flying. I mean, I guess you could theoretically take a train from Tokyo to Moscow. I mean, I know Japan's on an island or on a set of islands, but actually, do they have? I actually don't know if Japan has trains to other countries. Very often, island countries do have train bridges that run to other countries, but I don't know if Japan has that. I have no idea. But yeah, the implication here is that they're flying, so it's Прилетаем. We arrive by plane in Moscow or by flying in Moscow from Tokyo. Давай быстрее. Let's go quickly. Наша электричка something через 5 минут. So our электричка отходит. So our электричка leaves in 5 minutes. А мы еще не нашли наш вагон. And we still haven't found our wagon, our train car. Mama, не волнуйся. Mama, don't worry. Я позвоню тебе, как только наш самолет something в аэропорту. I call you just as soon as our plane... приземлится в аэропорту. Yes, so I'll call you as soon as our plane lands at the airport, and here they're using приземлиться. So I guess this is when the plane not necessarily arrives at the airport, but gets on the ground. So at this point, let me just check and make sure. Yeah, exactly, to touch down. So this is not, so when the plane has приземлиться, when the plane does that, it's not actually at the airport terminal yet. It's still on the runway or on the taxiway, but it's landed on the ground. So that's, I guess that's usually when the plane lands, they tell you can already use mobile phones. So the idea is that once the plane has landed, you can pull out your mobile phone and turn it on and tell somebody that that you've landed, and then they can be ready for you. Even though you're not off the plane yet, the plane's landed, and so you're expecting to get off the plane and into the terminal soon. So приземляться, to land actually on the ground, but not be at the airport terminal yet. Okay. Она something на такси на вокзал слишком рано и теперь должен ждать еще час. So, she приехала... So she arrived in the taxi at the train station too early, and after that had to wait still an hour. But better to arrive an hour early than an hour late and miss your train. Okay, уважаемые пассажиры, dear passengers, something самолета задерживается по техническим причинам. So, dear passengers, вылет самолета, so the plane's departure is delayed for technical reasons. Уважаемые пассажиры, dear passengers, поезд номер 55, something от платформы номер 2 с четвертого пути. So, dear passengers, train number 55 отходит, so is departing or departs from platform number 2 on the fourth track. So again, like I said, usually platform 1 is tracks 1 and 2, so then platform 2 will have tracks 3 and 4. So it goes by twos. It goes by twos, it does. Okay, внимание! Осуществил something race номер 1497, Sochi, Moskva. So, attention. Now, посадку. So now landing flight number 1497, Sochi to Moscow. Я надеюсь, что твоя something будет удачной. So I hope that your поездка, your journey, your train journey, will be lucky. And finally, мы something, well, process of elimination, it's... There we go. And that was the end of the lesson. So, мы приехали на поезде точно по расписанию. We arrived by train exactly on schedule. All right, so there you go. That was lesson 91, the second part of transport topics. So here's the conversation between Karl and Olga. Test 2. What is a marshutka? What is, for which train station do you take a train to airport Sheremetyevo? And why you shouldn't take a taxi to the airport, even though I think people do. Conversation between the tourist and the kassir, where she explains about Platzkarte and Kupje, which is actually good to know if you are traveling long distance by train in Russia. Conversation between Sergeant and Voditel, which I am not sure of the realism of this dialogue, how likely such a dialogue would be to transpire in real life. Explanations about stuff and things. So, arrival terms for a train, arrival terms for an airplane, and finally, a handful of fill-in-the-blank exercises. That was it. That was lesson 91. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll talk to you all later. Bye-bye for now.